Hello and welcome to week 30 of the FUT Weekly podcast. This is a content episode and I have with me some content experts. We've got JoshXLS. Hello.
Yeah, nice to be here, Ben. Yeah, 30. We're really motoring through now, aren't we? We're in the home straight, although we are only just past halfway as well. So, pick your poison.
Yeah, team of the season's looming, but it's still, actually not that far through the cycle, really. And then we also have with us, back after a little while, it's Nate the FUT Accountant. Hello.
Howdy, Ben. It's great to be back. Yeah, thinking about it that way, 30 weeks, over halfway, but still so far to go. Team of the season and summer silly season stuff. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, and talking of interesting, it's certainly been an interesting week of Ultimate Team content. We'll start off by getting into, as we always do, pound for pound powerhouse, and we'll pick last week's winner for pound. The options for you to pick from, Nate, are the 𝗪𝗓𝘗 road to the final, the Vasquez road to the final, the McManaman Dream Chasers, or Hugo Larsson Dream Chasers.
Yeah, I think that for me, a lot of those players ended up going into the Hullet SBC in the previous weeks as I was in really full force of doing that. But I think Lucas Vasquez, since I played against him for the value there, for the potential upgrades, I think that is a really good card and he gets my vote.
Yeah. And of course, at time of recording tomorrow, Real Madrid will play Arsenal in a big game. Anything you want to say about that, Josh, at all?
I just think a 1-1 draw with Everton's a perfect preparation for a game against one of the most potent attacks in European football at the moment.
Very encouraging. And we then move on to this week's pound for pound. I'll drop in Cherry, actually, who was on the podcast last week. His nomination for pound for pound is actually a player from the week before, but I thought it was still worth the mention. He went for Nadine Kessler, 3 playstyle pluses, including finesse, tiki-taka and incisive, 3 of the best for a cam, and he says perfect fit at cam, and you can have her on Playmaker++, and she's only 70k. Yeah, I like that one. Let's move on to nominations for this week. You going Ruud Gullit, Nate?
No, I'm going to go for a very budget icon, though. This promo with the little bro or the baby versions, junior versions, whatever you want to call them, they're just so affordable. And I'm going to go with Zanetti.
Oh.
I know there's a lot of cheap versions out there that look good, but I think with the pinged and the intercept and the center mid CDM positions and good roles too, he's got deep line Playmaker++ and box to box plus as a CM, good play styles, great stats, and, very evolvable either now or in the next couple of weeks. I know there's not really an Evo. I don't think that he fits really great right now, but he's 89 rated, so he's very close to a good Evo for a midfielder or a CDM that can boost him up. And yeah, that's got to be my shout.
I was going to nominate him myself, so I'm on the same wavelength. I agree. I think I've actually used him like 10 games or so, and he's been really good. Let's move on to you, Josh.
My nomination this week is an SBC, and I'm going to call this my hedge option for pound for pound powerhouse. And it's Ernest Nuamah, who is a road to the final right winger playing for Lyon, who play Manchester United in the Europa League in the next round. And I will always complete the live cards of players facing Manchester United, especially one who's got 97 base pace with low driven plus and rapid plus, with a really nice collection of play styles underneath it. You could argue he's maybe missing a passing play style, but he's got whipped. So if you're playing him in that winger, which is where I would play him, he doesn't have a plus and an inside forward, so you kind of have to play him as a winger. I don't think that's the worst option. And he's actually really quite good and has one of those cards where the stats are maybe a little... His face card stats lie a little bit about actually how good he is. Obviously, he's got the 97 base pace, which is attractive in and of itself, but his shooting is only 88, but where his shooting is perfect. He's got 92 attack positioning, 93 finishing, 95 shot power. It's the 3 stats you'd probably look for first. And it's brought down by the fact he's got 64 penalties and 76 volleys. His passing is where you want it to be. 87 vision, 88 crossing, 86 short passing. The long passing could maybe do with a little bit of help there. And then you've got his dribbling, which is all 90 plus. He's a really good card for 40k. if they progress, it's not out of the realms of possibility. United could, let's not use a metaphor for what they couldn't score in. But, they really are struggling to score goals at the moment. So I think you could have done worse than completing his SBC for just 42,000 kind of fodder coins. Because, if they get through United, there's every chance they then progress to the final. You're looking at like a 96 rated card if they go that far. So, I think I've actually completed pretty much all of the road to the final cards because I just think the price versus the potential for them to get to that 96 rated with a third playstyle plus is good enough that you can kind of, you do them all knowing you're not going to hit on all of them, but you only need to hit on one or two to get a really, really good card for a very cheap price.
And maybe just to touch on that for a quick second, I'd much rather have the Road to the Final cards released this way, I think, than in previous years where it's all in packs. You have to maybe do a couple SBCs to get a few of them, but now through objectives and SBCs entirely, you can do all of them without a whole lot of effort or chancing it on packs. And they're all live, and the upgrades do have really good potential. So it does feel like it's worth stocking each and every one of them in the club.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'll move on to my pound for pound after Nate nabbed it. But I think one of the most sort of direct, obvious pound for pound shouts, and this does combine it with an Evo that probably most people have done, but I was looking at the little bro or baby Zola through that Strike Force Evo. It will cost you a total of 523,000 coins, which is obviously a lot, but the 93 Zola that's been released as part of this campaign is actually 1 million coins. And arguably, well, I think he is worse because he has Dead Ball Plus rather than the more meta playstyles that you'll get through the Evo. So in terms of pound for pound value, it doesn't get more clear than that, I don't think. So that is my nomination. But yeah, Zanetti is really good and I've enjoyed using him. So that is a good shout. One thing we should definitely move on to make sure we cover it is the Henry SBC, because we've talked quite a bit about Henry on this podcast over the last few months, because obviously his team of the season, well, for a while, maybe even now, although I feel like quite a few of the Evos have supplanted him, was the best striker, I think many people felt, in the game. So, yeah, how does this Henry compare, Josh? What do you think? I mean, the big headline thing, I mean, it's 1.2 million coins, but he's 4-star.
Yeah, like this is one where if you've not been able to use an Henry card, then I think this is like fine if he's somebody you really want to kind of use in game. But as someone who has been using his Team of the Year card, I was a bit worried about what this SBC might look like. I got a lot less worried once it was released. I think it is that step down. I think it is that kind of like inform level down, but it's priced accordingly. If that card was on the market, is there an argument that it would be anything other than the kind of 1 million, 1.2 million that it is right now? I think the lens through which we see this SBC probably has to be that Team of the Season is less than 2 weeks away now, and is that card really going to survive, as you say, with just 4-star? Like, this is going to sound absolutely insane. Is there a chance he's like fitting an Evo during Team of the Season? Like, I'm looking at the fact he's only got 2 playstyle pluses. He's only 92 rated. He's only 4-star. I don't think it's out of the realms of possibility that within a month, 5-6 weeks, he's probably fits an evolution. And
I know what you mean.
Considering how long the SBC's out for.
Yeah, he'd still be there.
Yeah. I know what you mean, but the regular base icon is a rating lower, I guess. And, I guess you have the potential to pick up 2, I don't know, different playstyles or whatever. So I don't know. Although he will, of course, spike in price if there's an Evo he fits, probably. So I don't know. That's completely true.
He's also like much, much worse in terms of his passing stat. which is one of the main things I look at with those Henry cards.
Yeah, because they've got no passing playstyles, do they? And
it's also worth pointing out his balance as well. And it's maybe the one area where I'm tempted to complete the loan just to give him a try, because he's actually got 5 more balance on the Icon SBC than he does on his Team of the Year card, because it's the one area that has never made sense on Henry's cards. Like, the fact he's only got 70C balance is insane. But.
Yeah, I was like, have you ever seen Henry fall on the floor in his entire life? Like, it's mad. And it's always his worst stat, literally. It's crazy. Anyway, continue.
So yeah, no, I think it's well priced. I actually think in general, EA have got the pricing of these SBCs or SBCs in general recently, like fairly good, like fairly right. And, as I mentioned with the Road to the Final cards, even some of just the Dream Chaser cards, the fact that it was like 82 to 85 rated squads, well, that's the fodder that I, as someone who's been menu grinding, I've got so much of that and didn't really have too many places to put it, because, we haven't really... We got the 84x7s that were fine, but you tend to generate more of that low-rated fodder than you can put anywhere useful. It's what I do think is interesting is when you compare a player like 𝗏𝘏𝑉𝘐 to that Henry. He's got 3 playstyle pluses, including 2, fairly like nicely looked at, although you could argue 𝗏𝘃𝗲𝗏's not necessary and Power Shot people really don't use. Although I have been, maybe we'll talk about this on the gameplay pod, but I've been using those a little bit more this week, having had some encouragement to do so, and they are still quite good. But he's got like positional flexibility. He's got, passing, shooting, ball control. He's got relentless, so he can go for the whole game. And he's like a quarter of the price. So, there is definitely that kind of unquantifiable tax that's added to a player like Thierry Henry. And the low drivens are very overpowered and people are really like using them all the time. So there would be an argument between that and the finesse shot that his Team of the Year icon has. So yeah, I'm like, when you consider how expensive the Team of the Year icon was before we found out that we were getting an SBC, it's less than a month ago he was over 5 million coins. To get one that's, as I say, an inform rating down, as it were, for only, 1.2 million coins is pretty good.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it is solid, and like I wouldn't, if someone really wants to get themselves an Henry, I definitely try the loan at least, right?
Oh yeah.
Interesting in terms of SBCs we haven't mentioned. I feel like Nate the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝘏 looks pretty good. Like he has Intercept Plus, Jockey Plus, which is nice. He's like 270k. He's got Anticipate. He's got Bruiser. He's got Pinged. I don't really use long ball that much, so I'm not like over the moon about that being one of his playstyle pluses. I would have rather like Pinged or Tiki Taka or something, but he does have that. And yeah, he just looks like really solid value if you need a midfielder.
Yeah, I actually did the SBC like right away on Friday when it came out, just because I had some extra fodder left over. And he was only 270k, which was really easy to complete. And yeah, the long ball, I actually used him as a center back, which he did okay in. He was a little slow. I think that's what people are like worried about the most. And I think I used an anchor on the card because I was going to run him at CB. His tackling was really good. He was like really solid defending wise. And I will say his long ball passes were like, they just floated perfectly into place. I don't use that playstyle plus a ton myself either, but just trying it with him because he had the plus, I was like, oh, let's give this a go. And he lofted some very nice balls over the top. But yeah, I just thought, you know what? I have never used this icon. Like back in the old FIFA days when he was in the game, that was some of my first years playing in FIFA 14, 15, 16, before they removed legends and stuff, and he was out. And like, I never used him. So I was like, why not? 270k for an icon that's just added back in that I've never used. So yeah, I think SBC is very worth trying and very easy to complete. So it's just a fun one in my eyes.
Nice. Have either of you used the Szczęsny or played against him yet so far?
No, but I've heard some really good things about him as a goalkeeper. And somebody posted in the Discord the other day, and I really agreed with it, is that like keepers are kind of like a coin flip. They're either going to be really good or they're going to be absolutely useless. And I think that's why, you just see the same keepers pretty much in every team. Like most people still have that Casillas from Team of the Year because like I was using the Alisson, the 93 Dream Chase Alisson. He was just crap. Like I really didn't like. He wasn't doing the things that I expect out of my goalkeeper. I have also noticed, and maybe this is why I haven't given 𝘱ezný a go, because he does fit the thing that I was saying. He's an 84 and 85 rated squad. He's nice and cheap for a high rated card. He doesn't have Rush Out Plus, which is the thing that I'm kind of beginning to realize I really like in my goalkeepers, because I do tend to kind of pull them earlier than most people would to try and surprise people. He also doesn't have the deflector base play style, 𝘱ezný, which I think is becoming more important again with low drivens. You need the footwork play style to be able to make those saves from the low drivens. But if you don't have deflector with it, I feel like a lot of the time they just kind of put it back to somebody else on the other side of the net who just taps in. So you like, that's been a combination I've been looking for. It's interesting because I think it's the area of the team people look at the least. I would hazard a guess that's going to be a very low completion rate SBC, but I think he would do a better job than some of the goalkeepers I seem to keep coming up against.
Yeah. He does have 80 reactions, which isn't great, but it's not awful. So he's probably worth a try still. It's interesting you said Alisson wasn't that good. I only used him very briefly because for a brief moment, I didn't need an icon goalkeeper for Chem. He seemed pretty good. Because I don't know, I quite like the combination because he has all the base play styles, right? And he has footwork, and he seemed all right. But I don't know, maybe I guess I'm probably not like super aggressive with my keeper, so maybe the fact he didn't have Rush Out Plus wouldn't have affected me so much. But
I just felt like it was a waste. I felt like his long ball plus was a waste. Personally.
Oh, that is true. Yeah.
Like if you're comparing him to 𝘊𝐶𝑖𝑎S, who's what most people are using, 𝘊𝐶𝑖𝑎S has both pinged and long ball as base play styles, and then has footwork plus and far reach plus as his two play style pluses, as well as having all of the base play styles for goalkeeping. So I think that's maybe where I wasn't enjoying him as much.
Yeah, I find it quite weird in terms of we did kind of talk about this recently, but I didn't do 𝘊𝐶𝑖𝑎S because I was like, at the time I had Schmeichel and he was doing okay, and I was like, I mean, obviously that SBC was out at Team of the Year time, and I was like, it's not really a priority. Other things I want to use the fodder on, and then actually, like, I kind of regret it because we've not really had a keeper on that level since, even available on the market. Apart from, I guess, maybe a couple of, there's been an icon keeper or two who've been like 600, 700k on the market that maybe get a shout, but realistically, you don't want to be committing those kind of coins to that position. So it's a little weird. Like, I feel like it just add a bit more goalkeeper content.
I actually think they've done a good job of that recently, though. If you just look at the last few promos, we had Pope came, who's 5-star. Obviously, you had Petrovic, I think, in fantasy. Howard,
but those keepers are bad because they have bad reactions, though. Like I feel like you have to have the keeper, because they don't improve reactions on special goalkeepers. They basically have to already be good for it to kind of work upgrading them to some extent.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
So I think it's been a bit of a miss, but I mean, there have been a few, and if you're not relying on icon keepers, it's a bit easier to change up your keeper, I guess.
Is it bad that I packed 95 Angara and just didn't give her a chance at all? Like, I don't have no intention of even putting her in there. I can't do it.
You're just too short, right? She's 5'9".
Yeah, 5'9", and she also doesn't have Rush Out base play style.
I just feel like they need to just see what happens if they do a 5'9" keeper who has like the most meta selection of playstyles and stats possible, and see if that actually is enough. Because I'd be really interested to see that.
She does have 93 reactions, but
I mean, that burger, even with the far reach plus, just didn't reach stuff. So
I think it's probably one of those where you've got a bit of confirmation bias in it, though.
Possibly,
where every time someone hits a *𝘃𝑚𝑣𝑚 from distance, you'll go, that's because I've got a short keeper. 100%. And actually, it would have gone in anyway.
It's true. But I also think people tend to avoid 6-foot keepers already. Do you know what I mean? Like, people are like, 𝘊𝐶𝑖𝑎S, is lucky he's got such good play styles and stats because he is a bit short. Like, and that's a 6, I think it's 6'1" or something like that. So anyway, we should move on to any other kind of content people want to mention. I guess we've had, in terms of players, we've had obviously a suite of actually pretty interesting impacts players, and they're obviously, all got icon chemistry, which is great, and they've been available through Champs Rewards and things like that. So that's that's quite nice. Are there any particular players people wanted to kind of shout out? I know the Bale left back has been quite a popular one. He's not crazy expensive and actually looks pretty meta in terms of his stat distribution and play styles as well.
Yeah, that's a card that I'm really hoping to pack this week from upgrades or something because, obviously a Spurs legend, but I think they just did that card really good. Like 81 physical is kind of the glaring stat, but even with the team of the year, Bale, Icon SBC, like his 83 physical and 70 defending on that card makes me feel like he can make tackles even without any play styles like on that version. So I'm really interested with the left back Bale to try him out. Hopefully pack him, of course, but
yeah,
I will gladly sit my Evo 𝘬𝘅𝘁𝗍𝘅 for a few games for this card.
Well, also, I mean, he has such high pace. You can go with like a Backbone or a Sentinel to get his physical up. I was noticing if you go with something like Backbone, you're getting like 85 strength, 77 aggression, 89 stamina. He has relentless, right? 94 jumping, and his defensive stats are like high 90s, and it gives him a nice little long passing boost from Backbone as well. So yeah, I think he's like really, really good. I think even like better value than he should be. I don't know why he's 470k, but he is.
Yeah, especially when you consider the price that 𝘬𝘅𝘁𝘍𝘁
that's
like his gold card was when he could fit into an Evo to make him like arguably not as good as this card.
Yeah,
true.
To be fair, he doesn't have fullback, which could be a factor there. But
play with wing backs. Go on, risk it.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Play with some the number of people I play who just sit with 6 around the ball. It must be boring. Surely it must be boring. You must be bored playing that way.
Yeah. I think we'll take a break there because on this kind of topic, there was some chat we wanted to have about the power curve in just a second. Hello, welcome back after the break. Right, yeah, as I said, I think we'll take a bit of time here to talk about the power curve, which we might do sort of on a gameplay episode at some point because that's always kind of a slightly different perspective. But obviously, the focus for the power curve is generally around content, obviously. And I think there's a sort of interesting kind of variety of opinions in a way, or kind of like a lot of people look at this through various different lenses in terms of the power curve, because one of the things that's happened, I think it's fair to say, is the power curve was accelerated quite fast up until Team of the Year. And Team of the Year was a big jump. And now it's sort of, I guess, been a bit more level for some time, especially when you look back at what we got during Team of the Year. And I actually think this year was a bit different, Nate, compared to last year. I didn't feel like Team of the Year was quite as powerful last year as it was this year.
I would agree.
And that means that it's like made this period feel a little more barren in terms of us hardcore players who want to improve our teams.
Yeah, I think to my squad, and I think of the Team of the Year players, if you were lucky enough to pack some, that are definitely still in your team or probably have been for the most part. And then the 2 marquee Evos, the Team of the Year Blueprint with 3 playstyle pluses that was 500k, and then the center back Evo. I still have my Team of the Year center back in my team. It feels like we got a really big boost then with the 3 playstyle plus cards, and then we've just been like slowly catching up to that point since then. But also at the same time, like I'm looking at some of the stats in the cards now, and even comparing them to like last year's Golazo promo, and like the 𝘃𝑧 Henry that we have with, golly, the one in packs is 7 mil. I know he's got, it's a 7 mil card, but that is a insane card. Like those are June, July looking stats, 96, 95s, 95s across the board. So I think there is a point to be said that even though like Team of the Year boosted the curve so much and it was a little bit of a slow curve up since then, it feels like we're at a higher point this year than last year with the stats and the playstyle pluses obviously on the cards being 3 instead of 2.
Yeah, I guess it might be interesting to ask you, Josh, if you had control of the power curve and were not having to consider the fact that EA need to make money. And I do think that's a big reason why Team of the Year was so strong, was basically because they knew their numbers were bad for the first few months. They said that they were, or not necessarily for the start of the game, but that period after that. and they needed to make sure that Team of the Year did really well for them financially. So obviously they were always going to jump the power curve significantly, even though they probably know that doesn't necessarily help engagement, in that intervening period between Team of the Year and Team of the Season. But what would you be kind of looking to do to manage the power curve? Like, where would you like a sort of gentle step up over time? Is that the best way to go? Or do we need these kind of spikes? Maybe they kind of drive engagement, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult once you remove the main driving force of decision-making at EA to then work out what it is that you would do, right?
Yes.
Because actually, the engagement is the important part. Is it more engaging to have a stepped power curve, the idea of we hit a promo that really just raises the bar for everyone, and that might be giving people now access to a second playstyle plus or a third playstyle plus more regularly, or the rating increases, or we have role plus pluses if we go further back in the cycle? Is it better to have those steps in the promo that get everyone engaged for that week and then probably the week following, but then tail off again, than having like a continuous incremental push over the entire season? And also, one of my big things, I don't like Team of the Year. I've never liked Team of the Year as a promo. I think it's a silly promo just because it has to have end game cards, or it has to have like something close to like June, July cards. And yet it's in January. And so if you make them packable, then what incentive do you have to play the rest of the game outside of just playing the gameplay, which it isn't a dirty word, by the way. Like, just to go off on another tangent, a lot of people, when you say, what is there to do outside of just playing the game at that point, it's like, well, yeah, that's what you're playing the game for. And I agree. But when we were just playing the game for playing the game's sake, you'd maybe go through 400, 500, 600 games in a year. Whereas the current way that the cycle is, people are hitting 1,000 games by October. Like, people play this game to an incredible degree. And so actually, when it is reduced to you're just now playing to play the game, it is natural you're going to play it less because you're feeling less rewarded for what it is that you're doing. Mm-hmm. For me, I think that I would start with the highest rating of a player being something closer to 80 than 90.
I agree.
I think that giving them more headroom, because whenever I've said this in the past, in fact, I've had this conversation with 𝗏 quite a few times, and his response has been, that's just kicking the can down the road. And I was like, great, as long as it gets us to September, that's kicked the can far enough down the road that it doesn't matter. Because that is really all that we need. We need a power curve that feels engaging, probably through till about August. I think it doesn't matter what you do, but that, like, over the summer is going to be difficult to maintain interest and maintain some kind of positive move in a power curve. The problem when you do that is that your catch-up mechanic has to be really powerful at that point. And what I mean by that is, right now, if you hadn't played the game since Team of the Year, you could probably come back and not be too far away from the power curve, just with the players you already had. And then with like 100k spent, you could probably bring your team up to something close to, a good enough team to get you the normal wins you'd get in champs. If we had a power curve where there was like double the amount of headroom for us to move through, then it might be that you would leave at Team of the Year, come back 2 months later, and you need an entirely new 11. That is probably too much of a barrier for a casual player, and is why I don't think we see that. You also add in the fact that people would be playing with worse cards, with worse stats. How enjoyable would that be? I think there are ways around that. We have very regular patches. You can have 3 different versions of the game where players can be made to play slightly better at the beginning of a cycle than they would do at the end. Let's put it that way. And make it so that it's still an enjoyable game to play, even if you don't have 90 stats everywhere. But I think the reality of the power curve this year to last year, and I think something that shouldn't be lost, and I want to credit 𝘭 for kind of pointing this out. Last year, we had the Euros, and so was there an element of the power curve being slightly suppressed last year because they were going to be big promos. So we had the Greats of the Games, we had the Path to Glories, the Make Your Mark cards, because it was a summer of football that people wanted to be involved in. And so you needed that headroom with those cards to improve them. This year, we don't really have a summer tournament. They're probably not going to have rights to the Club World Cup because it's a FIFA-owned competition. Next year, we're going to have the World Cup in the USA. I would expect the power curve next year to potentially be a little bit slower, to leave headroom for what would be quite a big summer, even again, though they wouldn't have rights to call it the World Cup. We saw with you can get around that.
Yeah, the Euro stuff they did, even though they didn't have the license. Yeah.
I think the last thing I would say is they have added in 3 things in the last few years that aren't stats to try and have a power curve that doesn't involve giving higher rated players. Playstyle pluses within that. Obviously, skill moves and weak foot have been in the game for ages, but the idea of improving those is actually a lot more recent than people realize. The role pluses this year, their ability to perform in different roles. We had work rates that they would change in previous years that could be the same as that. So there are lots of different things they can use in the game to increase a player's value without needing to increase their stats. And I wonder if they could do a better job at looking at having more promos that explore those ways of improving players rather than improving the stats themselves. And maybe even for the first 2 months of the game, just allowing a lot of cards to catch up to 𝘰𝘵𝗵𝗽's, that level of card and the icons that we have, and then progressing as like a full raft of players up the rest of the power curve. But again, you have to see it through the frame of how much money they're making. To not do that is to remove the driving factor behind, I would say, every decision they make with regards to the game.
Engagement is super important to monetization as well, obviously. So if they spiked the power curve to such an extent that nobody wanted to play after Team of the Year, that would obviously be a disaster. So there is a sort of balancing act there. But Nate, do you kind of agree with all of that? Is there anything that you would kind of add? Is there anything you'd like to see moving forward or maybe next cycle?
Yeah, it's always going to be tough, I think. I think last year we wanted to see the start of 3 playstyle pluses sooner. And this year we got that. And we got Team of the Years that felt more like Team of the Years and more, kind of fitting of what team they're used to be. But yeah, it's just always going to be hard to try to appease everybody to keep the curve moving, whether they try to do stepped up or whether they try to do like a slow, not in terms of a step, like a linear, I don't know if that's the word, but, just like a straight curve. I think the word that I see them use a lot on their press releases and earnings calls and stuff is the stickiness word of like user retention in terms of how often they get people coming back to the game. Because I think us who play the game consistently week in and week out, we are obviously the hardcores and we are not.
We're stuck. Yeah.
Yeah, we're very stuck for sure because we love the game, love, football and all that. But I think that the stickiness that they're trying to always improve upon is how can we get the average Joe to play in Team of the Year? And then, we know that it's actually best if they don't play for future stars, but then they come back for what's next and they come in for a week or 2 and then they dip for a week or 2 or 3 and then come back in. And that way it's not getting as boring maybe to some people. I don't know. This is the always with content, the question that we have, but just overall with the power curve, it does feel like it's gone up fast, like now, I guess. And it feels like we're at a higher place than we were last year. But yeah, at the same time, I think that's kind of what we wanted last year too, was the 3 playstyle pluses earlier. It's always a tough discussion. I'm back and forth in my head.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think personally my preference would be for things to move a bit slower because, yeah, and I guess I'm someone who's like quite into the gameplay side, so I'm not as in need of these jumps to keep me engaged. And I think that's probably a somewhat common feeling amongst people who like really care for the gameplay side of the game. But what is interesting, one of the other things that comes up around the power curve is a lot of committed players saying it really frustrates me that, and we've seen it with the likes of Zidane, maybe Maradona to an extent, that people can come on and within a few weeks get a team that is as good as mine, they'll say. And I do think this is maybe a little bit of a myth, to be honest. A friend of mine, actually original co-host of the podcast, hadn't played until a month or two ago, a month ago. And he was able to really quickly build up a team, which was really strong and got him 9 wins in champs. But you've got to bear in mind that a lot of these people doing this, or maybe it's YouTubers like Nep doing it, they have a lot of experience of the game. They know how to kind of maximize value and will commit a lot of time to doing that. And I think that also when you compare that team that he's built to my team, even if I exclude the coins I have, so just untradables that I've built or evolved throughout the cycle, there is actually quite a big difference in actual quality. And I think if two players of the same ability played each other with those teams, my team would win should win pretty consistently, actually. And it takes a lot more time to kind of squeeze out that very, very kind of like top level of difference in team quality. It takes like a lot more effort and time to actually squeeze out that extra like 5% of team quality, but it does make a difference in game. But it also makes a difference in terms of how much you probably enjoy the game, or using players you really want to use and that sort of thing. But yeah, what do you think about that, Josh? Is that an issue that committed players should be kind of concerned with, or is it just kind of part of these kinds of games, I guess?
Yeah, I just think to like kind of wrap everything up, I just think there's a lot of competing ideas. Like, people want that constant progression, but the content that would require you to play to get that constant progression is also available to people who are just starting, which will help them progress quickly as well, right? To get to the things that you're trying to get to improve your team. So I think there's a lot to do in this game, and people want content all the time. They want more and more content. We've lost the years of just playing for enjoyment to play the game itself. Like, there is a desire in the community and in the hardcore community for content every single day. And if there is content every single day, catch up is going to be easy, because there's going to be so much that you can do to get more packs and players that will help boost your team. So, people want better objective cards. Well, yeah, but everyone can get an objective card, and they don't have to do it with a good team. So now those better objective cards are helping people catch up. People want cheaper SBCs. Okay, but that's easier for people who are just starting the game to get. So now they've got really good players from cheap SBCs. So I do think there's an element of people want things for themselves, but don't necessarily want it for the people they're about to play against.
Yeah, I agree. I think, this discussion can kind of continue forever, really. And I'm sure we'll talk about it again. Get in touch if you have any thoughts on it. And we'll come back after the break to talk about EVOs, including that rather daunting looking Immortals evolution. Hello, and in this break, a quick reminder that the pod is made possible by supporters. The pod didn't used to be weekly. Yes, FUT Weekly wasn't actually weekly for a time. And then someone suggested setting up the Patreon. And since then, the pod has been weekly. And in fact, it's been twice weekly, because there is that supporter episode every single week. So if you'd like to catch that episode and keep the podcast going, it's just £3 a month to do so. And you get loads in return. And there are perks higher than that, including access to the Discord too. So if you're interested and would like to support the podcast, then head over and search support FUT Weekly. Go to Patreon, and it's very easy to sign up. If you are a supporter keeping the podcast going, then a huge thank you for doing so. And if you do consider supporting, a huge thank you too. Right, let's jump back into the pod. Hello, welcome back after the break. In terms of the evolutions that we've had, I don't think like there's anything sort of in terms of the non-Immortals evolution, anything particularly stand out. There's some really nice paths for right backs and left backs at the moment. So if you're interested, head over to GG, look at the evolutions section, and look at the different chain options. But one of the things that's interesting, talking about the fullback evolutions, we had a timed evolution, which is 14 days long. So you're locking away your player for 14 days. They're probably only going to be ready for Team of the Season. It is called the Test of Time, which suggests that maybe they are testing something there, Nate, and they're just wondering whether people are willing to lock away a player for that long. But it's quite a good Evo. So for a fullback, but it is quite a good Evo. It's only 10k. To be honest, I'll probably just be doing it on someone because if I'm not going to use them, might as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of how I feel about it too. It is funny, the name of it though, because it says place a right back into this training camp Evo to evolve them into someone who will stand the test of time. But
can you guarantee
that? Yeah, exactly. By the time we get them back, it'll be Team of the Season, and they might not. But it still is decent for 10k. I just look at those training camp Evos for somebody from a national team Evo or like club team that I'm building, and not my main team that I'm actually okay with parking away for 2 weeks before getting it upgraded. But yeah, the two 𝘬𝘃𝗲𝗏 Evo that came out as well. Like, I think that's a solid one. Like, it is 100k. I think it's solid, but also it does not give any roles. That's the biggest like bad part about it, because it fits any position. How are they going to give role pluses in an Evo that doesn't, fit a certain position? So I like the boost that it gives, though. I like the stats going to 93s and 94s. And I also really like that you can do that via an SBC and craft it and get the evolution. So, yeah, I mean, Evos feel like they're there, they're good, but not insane.
Yeah. I feel like we've had maybe a couple more free or cheaper Evos recently, which has been kind of good, because I think that was a concern that maybe we could be going super paid. It's still really, really paid, but the SBC element is kind of nice. And I guess, let's move swiftly on to the whole Immortals thing. For those who don't know about this, I mean, maybe just continue not to know about it. It might be easier. Basically, it's a really long, not really long, but a pretty long process you can go through to evolve a midfielder. You focus on either cam or CDM, depending on what you prefer. And you'll end up with a 2 playstyle plus player who's 92 rated if you go down the free route, but then you can also add a paid evolution. We don't know how much the paid evolution is going to cost, I don't think, that will add a 3rd playstyle plus and increase the player further in terms of overall to a 94. And they also get 3 extra playstyles. I don't know. I don't want to get too much into the, I guess, kind of meta of what player to pick and playstyles and all that kind of stuff, because we're going to do that on the gameplay podcast. And I also will maybe save us all some time by just saying this is a nightmare of a thing to add into the game. It's super complicated. Stuff's coming at different times. There are playstyle limits which make it awkward because you can put in a variety of players, unlike Future Stars. So it kind of changes how the upgrades are going to work depending on that. The whole thing, I mean, is not really explained particularly in-game. There's an article EA released, which of course nobody's going to read, and I read it myself. It's pretty complicated to read. I would recommend, there's a post out on the FUT.GG Instagram and also on Choose Instagram, same post that runs through how this works. That probably is going to be a good way to kind of consume the information. But it kind of got me thinking, like, what can EA do better with these sorts of Evos? Nate, the Future Stars one was maybe a little bit more straightforward to some extent, but it's still pretty complicated, and a lot of people mess those up. And I think that's happening again, basically.
Yeah, I think it will too. And let's just say too, a lot of people mess those up, but it wasn't necessarily because they knew they were messing it up. It was just, oh, here's a card that fits an Evo, and I'm going to put them into this cosmetic Evo that boosts the playstyle, when normally that's fine. But no, I think you have to look at this like you did with the Future Star one and say, for this Become Immortal Evo, you can only do the Evos that are in the Become Immortal tab and the Objective tab in Objective. So that's the first place to kind of keep yourself on track. But I think one of the things that I liked during Future Stars was they had that little graphic over the Objectives tab in game that kind of showed you the step-by-step process. Like here, you choose your card. Here, you put playstyles, then playstyle pluses. Then you choose whether you want attacking, midfielder, or defender stat boosts. And I wish that they would put some sort of graphic like that in game and have it there, like maybe as a pop-up message on the promo Friday to start, and then also just in the game and like very in front of you so that you can see it and be like, okay, so step 1 is this, step 2 is this, and kind of lay it out that way. Even if there's like 8 steps, like leading into next week when we get the 94 rated card at the end for the paid Evo, if it's laid out and you can see the roadmap, then I think that would help a lot of people. And I think the pictures and the images in game and the menus will reach a lot more people than their website or even one of their tweets, because we're all in the game.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that. Really valid points. And Josh, what about you? The things that you would like to see which would just improve this in future?
My thing has always been that when you load up into Evolutions, or even if you go to the Become Immortal tab in Evolutions, that's when the pop-up should launch. Because you've made the active decision to go there to seek out Evolutions, you're going to be more ready to read that information than somebody who's just loading into the game to play a game, skips that pop-up once at the beginning of the promo, and then point. Can never get it up again.
Yep.
There is pills you can get for that. But like my view of it is that you have to come to where people are when they're engaging with the game, and that has to be where they are within the menu system. I think video content, like publishing video content within the game, that is not skippable. If you go to the Immortals tab, have some cool graphic things set up, show us what the path is going to be like. I do think there is a problem with the delivery and stuff like this, because if you want to do it over a 2-week promo, which is what they're wanting to do, how do you delay it from week 1 to week 2 and make it so that people don't make the mistake of giving something to their player that stops them from being eligible for the second part? Now, you can do that by making sure that the rarity can't be used in the Evos that are around at the time, but I think there's lots of complications around that. For me, it's tie it to friendly modes. Tie it to a mode that isn't available. Tie it to a rush mode that isn't available yet. Tie it to something where you can enter the player into the evolution, have the evolution as live, but they can't complete it until when you want them to complete it, by having that bottleneck be somewhere else in the game. That's the only way I can see them doing it right now. I hope that there's ways that they can fix that in the future, where actually there's no need for 2 separate evolutions. It's just one evolution, and you can pay to unlock the next level of it within that Evo. That would be the other way to do it. So, in terms of like the actual process itself of like the Become Immortal thing, I mean, there's elements of it where if you aren't reading, like, fair play, Nate actually read a description of something within the game, and like, but I would really wonder how many people do that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
because honing your craft is one of the objectives. Every legend sharpens their skills before becoming immortal. Complete these challenges to enhance your Become Immortal player and take the next step towards football greatness. What is the likelihood that you won't be able to add those 6 play styles to the player if you've done that final level of the Evo? I don't know if you can or not, right? But that has been an issue in the past. If you made the Future Stars player the icon version, you couldn't add the play styles that you'd unlocked for the Evo path to that player again. So the fact that it says every legend sharpens their skills before becoming immortal, does that mean I now have to put them on beforehand? There is also the added complication of, you could mess this up once they're entered, but you can also create a card that is going to go into the Become Immortal thing. If you can put them through another evolution that keeps them at 2 positions, 6 play styles, you can then put them into this. I wouldn't recommend it, because that first boost is so massive and so uniform. Pretty much every card looks the same coming out the other side of it. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. I don't think that the delivery method is ideal. I do think it's something they will be working on. But as with lots of things that are added, it has to work on the framework of the game that has been built over a decade and is really clunky. So
yeah,
just for some comedic relief, when you mentioned like going to the Evolutions tab and like having a video message pop up, can you imagine going to this Become Immortals tab and all of a sudden you hear, "Hi guys, 𝗵𝘀𝗀𝘀 is here to explain the new evolution."
Yeah, I mean, people just don't read stuff, do they? I mean, I don't either. Like, I can see why people get confused. And I think one thing that would actually make a massive difference, I don't think they'll be able to add it this cycle, but maybe in future, is that objectives that give evolutions feel kind of ridiculous in that you can't actually see any information about the evolution. What would help is if in the evolution tab, under this Immortal section, you can actually see the EVOs that were coming, but they weren't unlockable yet, if they weren't out yet, or they weren't unlocked because you hadn't actually done that objective. And it would tell you in the evolution section, oh, this is the objective that unlocks this. And then you could press a button, like you can in objectives, to go through to the objective that unlocked the Evo. And then people would have a much clearer idea of the path ahead because it would all be there. At the moment, the fact that they haven't been released yet, and the fact that they're all over the place, the fact they haven't been released yet, and the fact they're kind of all over the place is, I think, a major barrier. And being able to see ahead would make a big difference. I think that does wrap us up. I feel like we had a lot of kind of other things to talk about, but we will, of course, have another week of Immortals in the build-up to, I guess, Team of the Season. And it's not too far away. So good to chat. On this week's Gameplay Pod, we'll be talking about the Immortals evolutions, about playstyles in the midfield, about what we like there. So you can catch that as a supporter. Thank you very much, Josh, for joining. I don't normally do you first, but go on. Josh, thank you very much for joining us. It's been good to have you.
Hey, let's go. Get back to Headline Billy. Yeah, and Lord knows what the economic state of the world will be in, by the time we do another content podcast. 𝘬𝘂𝑦 might be 200,000 coins instead of 1.2 million. So
have to pay 30% to EA every time you buy them, and thank you very much to Nate. It's been great to have you on as well.
Thank you, Ben. It's been a pleasure being on.
And thank you very much to all you listeners tuning in via the various different platforms. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you're catching this on YouTube, you can subscribe there. Do drop a like, leave a comment. Do read all the comments. You could submit a pound for pound via the comments too, if you wanted to. And if you would like an extra podcast every single week, then do support the pod. You can do that over on Patreon. Just search Support FUT Weekly. And a big thanks to all those supporters, including those icon patrons: Dave B, Darren W, Hugh J, Rob W, Brent P, Ralph, Josh R, Brian, Michael B, Adam R, 𝘵𝘀𝘀𝘁, Make B, Michael H, Andrew P, Arian B, Rob S, Michael K, Neil P, Jake S, Tom B, Alex M, Alan G, Lee A, Chris G, Mark M, Dom P, Rob P, Roger D, Dan W, Waterman, Also Ran, and 𝘬𝘂𝘁. Plus a special thanks to Luke M, Dave B, Hugh J, Tom M, Darren W, and Pato Foot for advice and production assistance. Before I leave you, just one more thing to add though. Ultimate Team is a bit like life really. It has its many ups and downs. If you're having a few more downs than ups in real life in these more difficult times, then please don't feel that you're alone or need to struggle on without taking action. If you go to 𝘃𝗲𝑧one.net, there's loads of resources, advice, support, or even just a friendly chat for anyone who needs it. If it sounds like it could help you, then head over to 𝘃𝗲𝑧one.net. And for now, have a good one, and I'll catch you on the next podcast. Right, let's get going. Audio sync clap in 3, 2, 1, clap. Oh, went to the gym earlier, first time in 10 years. Clap hurt.
All right. Show off. That's got to stay in.